Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
وعليكم السلام.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulihi amma ba'du. Again, I greet our listening audience. Assalamu alaikum. We're continuing our Quran presentation, Thursday evening Quran presentation. And we're looking at chapter 16, verse 127. And this is the last verse on this chapter. We have been covering chapter 16 for some time now. This will be the last verse, the last presentation on it. We didn't do every single verse, but we went through the chapter focusing on Ibn Arabi with comments from Imam W.D. Muhammad, contrasting the two minds, as well as looking at some of the key words with Raghib, the Raghib dictionary, the Arabic Quran dictionary, Raghib, very well-known, famous dictionaries used by many of the Arabic students today, scholarly students today. So this chapter, I took some excerpts from Ibn Arabi, not all of it. If you want to go back as students and take a look at all of it, you can. But I took some excerpts from it because it's kind of long, and I just wanted this to be the last presentation. So let us begin with the reading. Let me get my pen together. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wasbir. Wasbir. Key word that we're going to be looking at throughout this presentation. Wasbir. Most of the time translated as patience, but I want you to notice how from the Arabic dictionary, Raghib, the idea we get from this word, sometimes it opens up more, gives you more than what you would get in English. So when we're doing this, and I'm addressing the students, as I have to always say in these presentations, addressing specifically, directly the Mali students, because this is part of your lessons in the classes. And we're covering the three different levels of classes that we have of the perhaps 8 or 9 classes. So we say what's better without translating. وَمَا sabruka. This is sabra again. Sabruka. This is the internal noun. Sabruka. This is the command. So it's telling you to be sabr. To be sabr, and your sabr is only with Allah. Only by Allah, only with Allah, billahi. وَلَا تَحْزَنْ, and do not fret, do not grieve over them, and do not be in daikin. وَلَا تَكُنْ فِي دَيْكٍ وَلَا تَحْزَنْ عَلَيْهِمْ, do not grieve over them, and do not be وَلَا تَكُ فِي دَيْكٍ, in distress. Do not let it stress you. Do not be distressed. Do not be angry. Mimma, from what yamkurun, from what they deceive of you, in you, about you. The first part, we're just going to look at this first part. وَاصْبِرْ وَمَا صَبْرُكَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. That's the crux of the whole verse. We have discussed in the classes. We're looking at this part here. So, first, let's look at the definition given, and I believe we gave it last week. Asabru. Asabru is imsaku. Asabru, see, we're not going to give the translation of it. Let's let the dictionary tell us. It is imsaku, is restraint. Restraint, fi deacon, in distress. You want to restrain yourself. You want to take hold of yourself in distress, in when you are being oppressed or suppressed, or when you are angry, in anger, or even a word that we use today, marginalized. You're being restricted, marginalized, a very educated term that's used a lot by many of the scholars, speaking of certain kind of people. وَحَبْسُ نَفْسِ, and the restraining of the soul, عَلَى مَا يَقْتَدِيهِ الْعَقْلُ وَالشَّرْعُ. The restraining of the soul is based upon what the intellect, al-aqlu, and al-shar'u, and the law. The intellect and the law requires of it. So we're going by intelligence, your own intelligence, and the universal law requires of it. This is the restraining of the soul. So we want to, I want to bring up, and maybe I'll bring up later on, we don't want to restrain the whole soul, just what is required. Don't restrain yourselves from everything, that which is required by intelligence and law. So now let's go to Ibn Arabi. He's commenting on this. وَاصْبِرْ وَمَا صَبْرُكَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. He's commenting on it, so everything is going to go back to what's in these parentheses until we get to what we want today, the next set of parentheses. So everything is going to be looking at this phrase here. وَاصْبِرْ وَمَا صَبْرُكَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ, which we have translated. إِعْلَمْ, know أَنَّ, know that as-sabra, know that as-sabra aqsamu, is divided into portions. Know that as-sabra, which is the restraint in difficult times, to restrain yourself, fi deacon. Is-sabru lillahi, that's one. Was-sabru fillahi, that's two. One is lillahi, that's one. Two is fillahi. Three is wasabru ma'alahi, ma'alahi. That's three. Wasabru anillahi, that's four. Anillahi. Wasabru billahi, and that's five. Sabru billahi. So we would say as-sabru lillahi, as-sabru fillahi, ma'alahi, anillahi, and billahi. We look at these points that Ibn Arabi brings out in these portions dealing with these parts dealing with as-sabr. Number one, he says, فَالصَّبْرُ لِلَّهِ. This is the first. فَالصَّبْرُ لِلَّهِ هو من لوازم الإيمان. It is one of the requirements of faith. لوازم الإيمان. So this is what the students will, I'm underlining the parts perhaps that the students will be dealing with. So you don't have to read all of this. Some of this is the presentation to put you into the environment of Arabic as well as of Ibn Arabi. So this is the first one is the requirements of Iman. Is one of the requirements. وأول درجات أهل الإسلام, and it is the first of the stages of the people of Islam. It's the first degree, the first level, the first stage from the many stages. There are many levels, and we're looking more inwardly, spiritually in our presentations when we're dealing with Ibn Arabi. We're not used to turning inward, but we're turning inward and we're looking inwardly more spiritually. So faith is the first stage, the first level, the first degree of the people of Islam. وَقَالَ النَّبِيُّ. So the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wassalam, upon him the prayers and the peace, al-imanu nisfan. That faith is divided into two. Nisfan. Nisfun, sabrun, half is sabrun, sabr, wa nisfun, shukrun. And half is gratitude. Half is sabrun and half is gratitude. That's iman. وَهُوَ حَبْسُ نَفْسِ. And it is, we're talking about still about sabru lillahi. وَهُوَ حَبْسُ نَفْسِ. And it is restraint of the soul, the self, عَنِ الْجَزَعِ عِنْدَ فَوَاتِ مَرْغُوتٍ. So it is the restraint of the soul from panicking. Restraining the soul against panicking or worrying or having an anxiety attack. Zadain. Inda fawati, during the loss, we could say. During the loss or the you're missing or losing maragubin, something that you love, maragub, something that you love, that you desire. Aw wukuru makruhin, all the occurrence of something that's disliked or hated. You want to restrain yourself. Restrain yourself from having some anger or anxiety or worry or discomfort, because you're going to lose something you love. This is the first idea. Sabru lillahi. Now we will have our Q&A sessions right after the presentation. Instead of waiting until 8, whatever time we finish, we will have our Q&A sessions. Number 2 is as-sabru fillahi. Fillahi. As-sabru fi. This is fi. The first one's li, this one's fi. Huwa as-sabatu fi suluki tariqi al-haqqi. And it is the establishment, I'm going to say, the establishment in the suluki, in the following, in the behavior, the following along the spiritual path. Tariq al-Haq. Suluki Tariq al-Haq. I'm translating it all together, is the following along the path of truth and reality. The Suluki, the spiritual path. Following the spiritual path of truth and reality. As I say, we're looking inward. This is sabru. It requires sabru. Restraining the self. Sabru is required. Wetautinu, and we would say, wetautinu, and settling, the settling of the self, or the naturalization of the self, keeping the self. It's a natural thing we're saying of the soul, settling, keeping it settled. Upon mujahidati bil ikhtiyari, upon striving with choices. When you're following along the spiritual path, when you establish yourself along the spiritual path, you want to keep the soul settled as though it's a natural disposition you want to have for the soul when you're striving and making choices. وَتَرْكُ مَأْلُوفَاتِ, and you want to omit al-ma'lufati, things that you become attached to. Now you can look these words up as students. That you become attached to, you're accustomed to. وَاللَّذَاتِ, and those things that gives you pleasure. You're accustomed to having these things, and they're pleasurable things. You have to omit them when you're on the path, when you're on this path of truth and reality. The many will refer to it as the spiritual path, as we're turning inward, and you want to rise and elevate and ascend to greater degrees, spiritually speaking, which will be manifested in your actions. وَتَحَمُّلُ الْبَلِيَّاتِ, and endure any troubles that may come, any discomforts, baliyati, any calamities that may occur. This becomes a natural disposition for the soul along the spiritual path of truth and reality. Wakuwatu, and having the force of determination. Fi tawajjuhi, in orientating oneself towards the source of perfections, of all perfections. We spoke about this with Ibn Arabi, and I bring it out more in the class, more in our Q&A sessions than I do here. But we talk about the human perfections, in the sense that we want to perfect that inner being. We want to perfect the qualities. We want to perfect our character. And those characteristics that we want to perfect are the same characteristics that we attribute to Allah in terms of the names or attributes that we give to Him. They're divine names and attributes that we attribute to Allah, but that we also share in those attributes as human beings, not that we are divine. And the more we perfect those attributes in ourselves, the more elevated, the more we're seeing toward higher degrees of existence, if that makes sense to you. The more we actually, without thinking of shirk, without committing shirk, the more we progress along the spiritual path of the divine. The closer we come, not that we become divine, but a high state in the perfection of the attributes. And the one who's the model for all of us is Muhammad the Prophet, the one who was perfect in these divine attributes on the human side, in terms of Rahman, mercy, so forth and so on. These divine attributes. I'm not going to go through all of them, but you are aware of them. You want to perfect them in your being. Yes. So when you're faced with the source, this source of perfections, you have to have the force of al-azima, of determination. Yes. Number 3, as-sabru ma'allahi, ma'a. So we say as-sabru ma'a Allahi huwa li ahli al-huduri. And it is for the people of hudur, the people of presence. And we can, I would say, the people of divine presence. Again, you can't get into this type of, when you approach this type of study, the first thing you have to remember is tanzih. You have to eradicate all elements that will contribute to Allah in terms of committing shirk. Language may be difficult, but, and this is one of the things that many people may charge people like Ibn Arabi with in terms of shirk and other controversial things. But I have to bring that up when we talk about hudur, being in the presence of the divine, hudur. Well, the kashfu, he's gonna have to explain. Well, kashfu and the disclosure inda tajarrudi, during the stripping, during the freeing, the true concept of freedom. Freedom from malabisi al-af'ali wa as-sifati. Freedom from the clothing of actions. And these, not all actions, you're not free of all actions, because we want actions, we want our actions to be based upon the divine attributes that we perfect, because as we perfect our character, and the most perfect of character are those characters that's defined by these attributes, because these attributes are the best names, the best attributes that we attribute to Allah. So we want to perfect the best attributes in the human sense, and by doing so, by having that soul that's described, that's named. See, we give ourselves some of these names, and we should seek to perfect these names. Salim is an attribute. It's a defined attribute. Movement is a defined attribute. Those are two attributes I should seek to perfect. If I can perfect those two attributes, perhaps I can perfect all the other ones. So in my soul, in me calling myself a name, and this becomes a name for my soul, and this becomes a name of my soul, it becomes reflected in my actions. But we want to become free of all actions that are defined by lower attributes. we want to eradicate the bad actions and the bad descriptions, the bad characteristics. And we have discussed this in the class also. Some of these things we have discussed, I just bring back to your mind in some of the classes. When we're looking at Ibn Arabi and we're looking at Imam W.D. Muhammad, when we start looking at them both together, then we can better understand Ibn Arabi when he says, when you want to free yourself from sifat, you can't free yourself from descriptions. You're going to be described in some form or manner, but it's the bad descriptions that have influenced the soul. Free yourself from that, and from those attributes that prevent you from evolving to higher stations in life, spiritually speaking. Yes, when we put the two together. And this is what happens when you begin to contrast one scholar, great thinker like Imam W.D. Muhammad, whom I feel have not been studied yet. To my knowledge, he hasn't been studied. Yes, we read and repeat what he says, but we haven't given him a study with the Arabic text of the Quran to understand and comprehend his teachings. And then after that, we begin to codify. So the Imam really doesn't have a tafsir that has been codified, like someone codified this tafsir of Ibn Arabi. Ibn Arabi does not have to have done it himself. And there's some that say he didn't do it himself, but this is based upon the teachings of Ibn Arabi, so it is called perhaps the tafsir of Ibn Arabi. Imam W.D. Muhammad didn't sit down and codify the tafsir, the verses of the Quran, but a student can go and look and read the Quran well from the Arabic text and understand and comprehend it well from the Arabic text and look at the writings of Imam W.D. Muhammad in the English text and begin to see these ideas, the logic, the concepts and ideas of W.D. Muhammad and put them in the right places to write or to present a tafsir of Imam W.D. Muhammad. That hasn't been done yet. We use the language tafsir, but we haven't done the work yet. And it may take time to do the work. And that's what we're doing with money. Yes. So if Ali Sifat, so we want to, those actions, the clothing of those actions and the attributes that have been put on the soul, we would say the bad actions and attributes, we want to free ourselves from that. And this happens with the disclosure. As we come in the presence of divine truth and reality. Because being in the presence of divine truth and recognizing divine truth and reality, we're in the divine presence of Allah without committing shirk. وَتَعَرُّضُ لِتَجْلِيَاتِ الْجَمَالِ وَالْجَلَالِ. And that is the exposure for the manifestation or the revelation of beauty and majesty. This is the occurrence. This is hudur. This is for the people of hudur. They become exposed to the manifestation of true beauty and majesty. وَالتَّوَارُدُ وَارِدَاتِ. And we would say, the arrival, وَالتَّوَارُدُ وَارِدَاتِ, and the arrival of al-unsi. Let me get my pen. Al-unsi. Al-unsi, the we could say the intimate friend, the intimate associate, the human, the true human. We come into that true human essence, or that intimate friend. He's going to show here. Well, haibati, and haibati, reverence, intimacy and reverence. When we're in hudur, when we experience hudur, and this intimate friend, fahuwa bil huduri al qalbi, and it is by the presence of the heart. Liman kana lahu qalbun, to whoever has a heart. And this concept of heart. I'm saying these things shortly, but we can elaborate more when we get to this verse in the classes. All of the classes will be covering this verse essentially. The heart, we could say, is the seat. It's the seat of knowledge and science, where all of knowledge and sciences reside. True knowledge and science that man must dip into, have a relationship with, in order that knowledge and science manifests itself in the material or physical or social environment. Before anything can occur physically, it has to occur spiritually first. So the elevation of the soul, spiritually speaking, don't see it so spooky, but there's the elevation spiritually, and as you elevate yourself spiritually, it will manifest itself materially. The higher you elevate yourself in your actions and your character, it will manifest itself in your deeds and actions. That's why we have for the ritual, malabisi, the clothing. See, I tell myself don't go off too far, but it's okay. The clothing of actions and sifat. You see this concept and idea we have here in terms of hudur. When we want to put this in our dress now, we want to put this idea in our dress as a ritual, a custom in our dress. That in our dress, the only thing that should show is our hands and our face. That's for the man and the woman. In our best formal dress, our formal dress is our best dress. Our best dress should manifest itself from our highest, best spirituality. Degree of spirituality, we could say. Yes. A person who dresses low, we would say they have a low spirit. And the person who dresses the best, formal, they're higher in degrees of their humanity, expressing themselves. So, in the best dress, even in the American best formal dress, only the hands and the face shows. And the hands is symbolic of our af'ali, our actions, and the face is symbolic of sifat, our characters. And those are the two things that's manifested in the social life, our actions and our character. I hope you get it. If not, we can ask questions. And to get to that level, we have to have an intimate relationship with the pure heart. That it becomes our friend. Move this down a little bit. Number 4. والصبر عن الله عن الله هو لأهل الجفاء والحجاب. And this is a sabr away from Allah. An Allah, more away from Allah, is for the people of al-jufa'i, of uselessness, wal-hijabi, and veiled. They're veiled in darkness. In darkness, essentially ignorance. They're covered. Nuraniyan kana aw dhulmaniyan. Whether they're enlightened in this material world, in the sciences, or dhulmaniyan, or in darkness and ignorance in the material world. We have a lot of people, we can say, by the standards, by American standards, they're educated. But by standards of religion, they may be veiled, still operating spiritually from a low level. Or they could be ignorant in science as well as in their spirituality of religion. Yes. I'll leave it there for more discussion. وهو مذموم جدا, and it is very strongly reprehensible. وصاحبه, and the one who's in this state, this reprehensible state, malumun, is another word for reprehensible, haqqan, truly, rightly, and truly. وَكُلَّمَا, and whenever, kana asbaru, and whenever the time for sabr occurs, kana aswa'u halin, he's worse in terms of his condition. When he has to apply sabr, restraint upon the soul, his condition becomes worse. This is the people of Jufai, uselessness and veiled. Though they may be in the light of science, performing great scientific functions. Many times, we're educated in this world physically, materially, and we're given tasks to perform. And we're considered educated in that sense. Not truly manifesting this enlightenment from our own soul, but being the shadow or the slave of someone else's soul. As well as those who are in darkness on both sides, the material and the spiritual. That any time they're faced with circumstance that requires sabr, their condition becomes worse. In terms of jufat, wal hijab. But if I do, and they become more distant from the divine encounter, And number 5 was sabru billahi. And this is the one that's used in the verse. As-sabru billahi. Huwa li ahli tamkini fi maqami al-istiqamah. And it is for the people of Tamkeen. Tamkeen is ability. People who are empowered. People that are empowered. That makes the possibility of things to occur. They're empowered. لأهل تمكين في مقام in the station al-istiqamah of uprightness. They're empowered in the station of uprightness. الذين, those who أفناهم الله. Allah has extinguished, Allah has eradicated them بالكلية in totality. Finab. So Allah has not eradicated them. Allah has eradicated their bad habits, their bad characteristics, their bad characters, which in essence eradicate their bad behavior. Totally. This is billahi. Totally. That summa wahaba, that he grants for them wujudan, an existence. See how all of this ties in together without me repeating it. He grants for them an existence min dhatihi, from his own personal essence. You see, remember we talked about the attributes. These attributes that we have, that we acquire for to define ourselves by, to perfect, are from his own essence, from his essence. Though we're not gods, we're human beings. And when I breathe into him of my spirit, we're not gods. Don't get the language twisted. But when he eradicates all of the bad habits, the bad character, then he grants them with an existence from his essence. Hatta, until qamu bihi, until they stand by it, until they're established. Istiqam, they become established, righteous. وَفَعَلُوا بِصِفَاتِهِ, and now they act according to his characteristics. وَهُوَ مِنْ أَخْلَاقِ اللَّهِ, and it is one of the moral characteristics of Allah, the Most High. So in conclusion of this verse and in conclusion of this chapter, we make a comment from Imam W.D. Muhammad, who says, so if we are true believers in Allah, now if those of you who have been following, in the classes you've been following, look how this sums up what we've been talking about in the chapter, if you can retain some points in the chapter. So if we are true believers in Allah, and we truly wish to make al-Islam become Ahlul Islam, the people of Islam, our way of life, we have patience and we seek patience and perseverance by trusting and giving our total self to Allah the Almighty. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. And that concludes our presentation for this evening. And like I said, you all can stand by if you want, but we'll go directly into our Q&A sessions in a couple of minutes. Assalamu alaikum.